Yeah, gonna make a video even with the crunchy leaves. Sorry. Yeah, I should try to figure out a way to minimize the amount of sound that's dispersed, but I didn't do that. Guess I could use the Band-Aid thing maybe. Maybe I can walk more carefully. Anyway, sorry, wasting time. So a couple of subjects I'm thinking about just rolling through my head. I should have, I'm rendering a video now, but it should be posted before this video. Response to a To Be Serious comment. It did get me thinking just about the scope of problems and understanding their nature. And it's sort of related to, because I watched a Richard Feynman physics video that Huff the other day had linked me to. Interesting, on light reflection and stuff, so I'll probably do a physics video. Not that I have anything new, but it's just good to make a video now and then just to keep me in the game. But just understanding, and the fact that there's a mechanism underlying everything, and we have general knowledge of some of the mechanisms, but some of them we don't really understand. We just understand byproducts, and understanding products is good, but it doesn't really tell you the whole story. And so I guess I would argue that sort of like that with people, you can say the word natural selection and evolution, and their perception of that is something to do with, okay, this mechanism that creates modifications. The modifications compete with each other, and it comes up with this end result that's a little more efficient, a little more competent, a little more capable of surviving. And that in general, it would be thought that these new machines are better than the old machines. Not that they're just maybe different, or that their advantage might be short-term versus long-term, and therefore not necessarily an advantage. I mean, you could argue that, flightless birds were first flighted birds, that they actually gave up the ability to fly because they found a niche where the inefficiencies, the high energy required to fly was no longer productive. And so now they're almost, you almost have to argue they're a lesser version, but they're more survivable. It's like snake versus crocodile or something. It's one is more complicated, but and you'd almost think better. But the simplicity has also got its own merits. Well, anyway, don't want to get lost in that point. It's just that the understanding of the mechanism, understanding the clock, understanding the machinery that's producing the result is sometimes more important than understanding the result. So understanding the result of evolution, saying, oh, pretty colors, trees, this, oh, okay, there's a little bit of animals getting hurt, blah, blah, blah. But, you have a perception that doesn't have much to do, in my opinion, the average perception, with the reality. What's really happening, the microbes, the whole mechanism just can't be perceived. I don't think anybody can perceive it, accurately. Could draw it on a piece of paper that would represent it, because how do you represent a million this and a billion that? Little creatures right now buzzing about in this weeds here. How do you put that on the paper? You can't. You can't weight it. I guess you could weight it. I mean, you could metaphor it as a thing and say this has this much gravity. But I just mean it's very difficult to do, to really understand what's taking place at every given 10 minutes of our progress through a life. And even with our own existence, we have this problem because our psychology has this for every 10 minutes, the agenda's slightly different. My agenda right now is just navigating the woods, trying to make a video that's somewhat audible, coherent, and that's the 10-minute agenda. The overview of the whole day. Yeah, I'm going to work. I got to get some shit done. Later on, I'm going to do this, that, and the other thing. I'm going to try to do that and that, but I'm not going to get any of that shit done because that's just a pipe dream of mine that I'm actually going to become productive. But anyway, that's the day agenda. And then there's a week agenda, and then the month agenda, the year agenda. And, that's the real mechanism that's moving me through moments of my life. And depending on how I feel, might also interfere in that agenda. It becomes part of the motivating mechanism, and so now everything changes because I have a terminal illness or some other thing comes up, and now the agenda's changed radically. Even though the world is exactly the same, the world out there didn't change, but how I'm going to perceive it and how I'm going to react to it has radically changed because of a personal circumstance. And I guess that's what I'm trying to get to, is that there's a mechanism that causes, oh man, oh, that hurt, stick got me. There's a mechanism that causes light to reflect. It has to do with the physics of the light, the state of the light, but also the state of the thing it's hitting, it's interacting with. And that'll decide this result. And we don't know, we know probabilistically that this is what the result's going to be, but the mechanism is still mysterious. And with us, though, we can see the mechanisms. It's not, hidden tiny physics. We have videotape of ourselves. We have enough insight, enough knowledge of the clockwork to understand this psychology trap that we're in, and the fact that we are subjectively reacting to the world, emotionally reacting through the conditioning of our taste and our sensibilities. That we do have this innate phenomenon, this capacity to become a Yankee fan, for really stupid reasons, to become attached and to see merit in, or to see beauty in, or to see value in things for non-reasonable, non-rational reasons, just very circumstantial reasons. And that the rational thing to do is to understand that mechanism, that psychology that's controlling perception, and understand that, recognize it in ourselves, see ourselves fall into these traps of value. And that's sort of what's being argued here, is that, I'm arguing, other people are arguing, that, your sense of, the catch is that as you do this process of weeding yourself, your psychology, of its bullshit, you will essentially be transforming your nature too. You're changing the photon that you are in terms of your visceral reactions. Your visceral reactions will start to mimic your perceptual understanding. The values you recognize objectively, you will start to feel subjectively. And you'll become a fan of the logic, or the cleanness or purity of a statement, a bit of reason, and those will be the things you'll become. Your attachments will become your routine, your mechanism of every 10 minutes and every half hour and every hour. All of a sudden, you will start to become, how you run, how you operate, will start to be entwined in those perceptions. They'll constantly be with you. I mean, I could use a metaphor. This happened to me when I was very young, where I start to see trees with blood on them. I mean, metaphorical. My brain would evolutionize the trees. So the trees would be a representation of evolution, and that representation would have all that it took, all the failed experiments, all the horrible trials and tribulations, all the hard, brutal work it took to make these things, to make what we are. The 4 billion years of the friends of my ancestors being eradicated, right? I mean, my ancestors survived, but for their sisters and their brothers, probably didn't. Most of them, many of them. They met brutal ends. Even my ancestors, many of them, probably met brutal ends. Yes, they successfully laid their egg, but they met with a substantial horror in propelling themselves through further permutations of their routines, of their interaction routine. By going another 10 minutes, another half hour, another hour, and they kept moving through, chasing their comfort. And even though they successfully reproduced, they might have very unsuccessfully died very slowly and brutally. And so their life wouldn't be called a success, even though by the measures of the clockwork of natural selection, that's what it is. That's win, even though the defeat is written all over it. The spectacularness of the defeat. It's almost like being able to have a war where you could have some point in the war where you make magic perfect juice or something. Where you actually create something that's valued. You build something magnificent, and then you lose the war. The irony of it is that human beings, by evolution standards, the only thing that's measured as having any value is replicating. And if you don't make that first step, your nothing you do will matter. No matter how good you do the rest of it, it's going to be irrelevant in terms of being appreciated as accomplishment or valuable or a good thing. And no matter how bad it gets, once you've replicated, it doesn't matter. That won't be counted. There'll be no accounting of the inevitable failure, the inevitable losing of the war. And that's just another point to make, that this is what perverts perspective, is that we live our lives by how you doing kind of moments. How am I doing right now? I'm a little queasy, but not too bad. All the parts seem to be okay. My wrist is a little sore. My back is a little cranky. So I can do assessments moment to moment. I can do assessments week to week, or month to month, or year to year. Okay, not too bad a year. Only had Lyme disease twice, and only had a couple of ear infections, and blah blah. You can do this assessment thing, and but in the end, it's not going to. These minor assessments aren't going to matter. The only assessment that's going to matter logically, rationally, is the recognition that what's the end result. If you got to the top of Mount Everest, but then fell off the mountain and tumbled, and slowly died over a 10-year period or something, in some miraculously slowest death on Earth ever, it wouldn't be, oh yeah, that's a successful trip, let's do that again. That wouldn't be sensible as an argument. And if you had a very successful life, but you had like 10 siblings who all succumbed to different horrors before they ever accomplished anything, you couldn't say that your kind did well. It was a huge success. And so I guess that's the sort of the point ultimately I'm trying to get to here, is that I think an honest appraisal of the whole game, is to recognize it's a bad game. That it is a game not played fairly, and where deserve has nothing to do with it, and it's wastes a tremendous amount of slow, horrible death and harm and suffering, and that the only thing of value in it is these moments of chase, right when you're, what's the glory moment for the lion, right? It's not the waiting and the waiting and the waiting, it's that moment where the pounce and the take it down, and you've got your food, but it's a lot of work to get there, and carries the risk of you trip and you break your jaw and you're out of luck. You're going to starve to death. The little bullshit, you break your paw kind of thing or whatever, and now you're doomed to really hard times on planet Earth. You're going to do some suffering. It's going to be for nothing. You're not going to win. It's just going to be a long, painful, horrible loss. So, I didn't exactly frame this the way I wanted to, but it just has to do with perception and getting to the roots of the clockwork. And it all does have a clockwork. It all does have a mechanism to it, and we can see the mechanisms that make it go. And it's really important for people to recognize how they're being manipulated by their psychology, to validate, to endorse, to keep saying, because in this 10 minutes they're in the game, that the game is good. And this isn't the game. What I'm having here isn't the game. The game is huge, and if you blend it all together, it's not good. Yeah, it paint's a little off color, but no new holes. That's good. I don't think that's a new hole. It's a new effort, but no hole. All right. Until next time, and such. So forth and whatnot. Wow. Yeah, look at that. Very nice, actually. Extremely nice. I thought it was a good, nice day. Anyway, I guess I'm tired. I worked for 3 hours. It's just way too long a work day for me. Anyway, so back to the subject. Perception is what we're talking about, right? It's just this idea of the perception that it needs to continue, the perception that you need to have the biological organisms, chasing the sun, chasing the pretty picture. And even that, you can sort of feel how, these things are comforts. And that's the reason why they work, is because they create comfort, a sense of comfort. I mean, that's why this is nice, pleasing, soothing. It's comforting. It makes the world seem to make sense when the aesthetics are nice, when you feel benign and not harassed. It's the sensations are ones of reclaiming, regeneration. So to have those sensations, the obvious argument is you have to be pushed into some sort of darkness to get there. How you doing? Hi. Okay. A little family of 15. I guess it was 3, but still too many. Water bottle. Threw that down there. I walked right past it though, didn't I? Yeah. Shame on me for that. Anyway, I mean, maybe somebody's going to pick it up on their way home. Maybe I'll use that as an excuse. But actually, I knew I was already there yesterday, so that would be lying. I just didn't stop. Yeah, so that's the living game. It's one where you just don't want to stop when you're on a roll. You know, when life makes sense, you really don't want to hear about how it's stupid. Yeah, when you're feeling, you know, this direction, you really don't want to hear about how that's the right way to go. Yeah, it's just still all this psychology, and we should be able to honestly admit the psychology that runs us, moves us, pushes us, feeds us, controls us. But instead, you know, can't do that. Have to keep pretending, you know, there's some grand mission. There's something more complicated than, you know, the simple, your simple need for some comforting thoughts, some comforting images, some comforting environment. And it's discomforting to know the truth. The truth is not comforting. Yeah, it's annoying, like that noise. So, as if the noise of the leaves isn't bad enough. Yeah, look at that, that's lovely. Yeah. Anyway, I'll give up. Why compete with that? Yeah, forget it. I won't bother trying. So anyway, till later and such.